Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Teller County Sheriff's Office podcast. Today, I'm joined by, of course, Sheriff Mikesell, and then also Roger Coker, the dispatch director. I always forget that. I'm sorry. The dispatch director for obviously the dispatch office here. Really busy several months for you here. The last 90 days or so?
Very much so, yeah. We've had 4 major incidents in the last 90 days.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll get into talking about that some, and kind of how you've been responding to that, and how you've been helping not just the community, but also the deputies and the other first responders to either be evacuated or get the most information, or to get to where they need to be, depending on who we're talking about here. So the closest thing was the blizzard. What was that, a couple weekends ago?
Yeah, just
that was
weekend.
Insane.
For this time of year, yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
It was an exciting one.
I was the day that the blizzard hit I actually was here pretty late, and I walk out to my car, and there's this big snow pile against the side of my car. Then I had to drive. Thankfully, I live like 5 minutes away from here, but that was an adventure getting home that day. What did that look like for the dispatch center?
Yeah, so we got 2 feet of snow in this one, and the first thing that happens with the dispatchers, they start to prepare because they know what's coming.
Of course.
I mean,
okay,
and
great.
the dispatcher remembers your first responder, because we're the ones that hear the calls for help first, and it's our job to go find and send the resources that are needed to help the community. So in the case of the blizzard, we're focused on knowing where our deputies are, because remember, these deputies are driving around in the same conditions people are driving around and sliding off the road in. So we want to know where those deputies are. We want to make sure they're staying safe. Then we start to receive calls from the public. So once that snow sets in, of course, you're going to have some vehicles slide off the side of the road, and we've got to go out and help them. So the dispatcher's focused on getting law enforcement there to understand what the issue is, send in fire, and maybe have medical either on standby, or maybe send in medical as well, depending on the circumstances. So in a blizzard event like that, we get a lot of calls, and everyone is important because it's so cold, and it's important to get out there to the people that need help on the side of the road.
Now, how many dispatchers did you have on that day that were working on, say, that first day of the blizzard?
For the blizzard, we were able to handle that with 2 dispatchers on duty.
Nice.
Without any issue. We at times we have 3 dispatchers in the center, but for this particular event, I mean, frankly, it wasn't as bad as it could have been from the dispatch standpoint, from the work volume standpoint. We didn't have as many vehicles slide off as sometimes happens. Maybe more people stayed home. I don't know, which would have been a good idea. But
well, we sure asked them to. So,
So yeah, we did that one with 2 dispatchers on duty through the whole event.
Okay, I assume they were probably pretty busy with. You were talking about sliding off, and also I saw that the deputies were going out to do like welfare checks and things like that. Make sure the people that were socked in could. Well, the family members knew about them.
Tommy, that dispatch center for any type of an event is really the hub. That's where all the information comes, so that we can get first responders out, search and rescue out, all the different assets, the road crews out to where they need to be. So, dispatch is really key to a lot of different aspects we have at the sheriff's office.
Now, on that, because we have such an important, or because you have such an important role at dispatch, I know that we have a very advanced dispatch center to help those dispatchers handle those calls and react to those calls. Could we maybe talk about the technology, some of the advancements that we have, even maybe in comparison to some of the other agencies around here?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell the history a little bit too, because when this building was built, the dispatch center we had before was really kind of a closet. It really didn't. We weren't too far from using punch cards and things that we saw back in the 90s in a dispatch center. So when we started to look at the engineering of what a real dispatch center would look like, what was formatted out of that was really us going to every dispatch center within the region, discussing it with some really smart engineers. And then this dispatch center was built to be something that would go into the future and continue to be built into. And what I mean by that is that we're growing at such a high pace within Teller County. The ability for a dispatch group or team to operate within a building is always adapting. So this center was built with multiple systems and the size that would be needed to grow with the county, not just Teller County.
Okay.
And even now we dispatch for one of the local agencies at night. So it's just you can grow into it. It can grow with the county as we continue to grow.
Nice.
With the whole building only being 3 years old at this point, the dispatch center, of course, is the same, only 3 years old. And just given the time frame that we were in, it was perfect timing because there were some changes being made with software, some updates and things. We got on the leading edge. And at this point, we have one of the most technologically advanced dispatch centers in the state of Colorado. Mm-hmm. So we have 11 dispatch stations, if you will, and each one of those has 7 computer monitors and 2 telephone systems. One of those monitors is a digital radio system. So our work, when I'm interviewing applicants for the dispatch center, one of the things I tell them is we're very much a digital operation, so they have to have really strong computer skills. Okay. Microsoft Windows kind of computer skills are really important in this position. We try to do everything on the computers. We don't want to have pieces of paper floating around in there because you got to track those and keep up with them and go find them.
Sure.
Everything needs to be systematized, so we've done a good job of that. We have great support from the El Paso Teller 911 Emergency Authority and from the Teller County IT Department. We get such tremendous IT support from those two. Our resources are absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Kyle over at the IT department has been just across the board been valuable to everybody.
Absolutely.
I cannot imagine how much help he's been for an evolving dispatch center.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, over the past 6 months, with cyber attacks being a leading issue, we're one of the only dispatch centers that's been up and running still. Yep. So all those advancements, all those things that were put into place to make this system have a really good backstop and an understanding of what we needed from it has been very robust. Our radio systems are probably better than they've ever been. We are on the state 800 systems, and we do have backup systems. Roger's been a key in really getting us staffed up and getting the right training in for people. Because I gotta say, bringing on Roger into that dispatcher director position was something I was pretty excited about, because it gave us an outside look. Because Roger had been out of the dispatching world for a long time, been in the corporate world, the corporate HR sector, and understood people. And really, as a manager of dispatch, I need somebody that could understand people, because that is such a high volume, there's a lot of pressure. So it's a good pressure, but it's just something that you're constantly working on. So having that background has been really good for us, and it really has given a different look at what dispatch, and it's performing very well. So
I would think that just about any job that is as vital to a community, to any group of people as dispatch is going to have its pressure. That's just the nature of the beast, and it takes a very special kind of person to come in and take charge of a situation the way that dispatchers do.
It does.
Now, we were talking about the blizzard. I actually would like to move on, if we can, to the Highland Lakes fire. Yep. My goodness, that was a busy time for you, I'm thinking. Talking about the technology and the support and all of that, can you kind of talk about maybe the time between when the phone rings to when it gets picked up? I mean, I understand it's the fastest within like this area and El Paso County.
Our dispatchers answer the 911 calls on average in 2.4 seconds. So that's from the time that phone rings until the dispatcher starts talking. Okay. It's 2.4 seconds. Now you got to realize, a lot of times you're talking about, in medical cases, these are life and death situations. 5 minutes can result in organ damage, 10 minutes can result in loss of life. Yeah. So the faster we get that call and get those resources on the way, and in the case of our dispatchers that help coach people on how to administer CPR over the telephone, all these things are happening very quickly, but it all starts with that quick response to the phone call.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to be somebody that's facing a life-threatening injury and have the phone just ring.
Yeah.
2.4 seconds is extremely fast, and to have somebody on the line that quickly that can start administering some type of CPR over the phone, or to administer the life-saving piece of getting other folks to the scenes, that's pretty amazing, and that's where it all starts. In a lot of dispatch centers, they use dispatchers as the front office person. They use them for the records management person. They use them as the dispatchers we employ and we utilize in our center are only dispatchers. And I think that's key to modern success for dispatches. You don't want somebody that's splitting the different things that they're doing. You want somebody that is focused solely on the job of taking the phone call, helping somebody get through CPR, helping them get through all the issues they're having, get us the information that's needed, because there's so much needed nowadays as to when we do this on locations and all the different information that she's trying or he's trying to receive. They don't have time to be something else. And that's where I think we have had great wins is we separate it. Your job is dispatch. It's not all the other things that most agencies throw into it.
Okay. It's like half a ring and the phone is answered. That's got to instill a lot of confidence in the person calling that dispatch is there for them, not making them wait, not getting them keyed up as the phone is ringing over and over and over again. Now, with the Highland Lakes fire, I'm assuming that when you started to alert people pretty early on there?
Absolutely. That call came in a little after 4 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And the dispatcher, when they receive a call like a fire in progress like that, the first caller tells us it's a structure completely engulfed in flames.
Okay.
So we know there's two things going on. There's that structure, but then where we're located in Taylor County, it's what's all around that structure now. Where's this fire going to go? The dispatcher has to very quickly gather all the information needed. They've got to send law enforcement right away so they can go out and start to assess the risk. What's the risk in this particular location to life and property, but also where is this likely to go next? Meanwhile, the dispatcher's still gathering information, now starting to dispatch fire resources. So we need to get the firefighters out there. We know we have one fire already. And we'll usually go ahead and put medical on standby because we don't know what's in who or what might be in the house. So we've got 3 different resources already deployed. I mean, within a matter of minutes, and I can tell you an example of this fire, within 30 minutes, we've got multiple law enforcement, multiple fire personnel and vehicles and medical stage nearby. So the dispatcher's got calls coming in, dispatching over the radio, typing information in the computer all at the same time. So it can be a high-pressure job. But these dispatchers receive 6 months of training to do this job. And the team that we have now, they're just outstanding at understanding the gravity of the situation very quickly, very rapidly sending the resources that need to be sent, and then monitoring all the resources that are on the ground in the field, doing the work, and making sure that we're hearing all those calls. Because you think about it, now you got law, fire, and medical resources. They're all using the radio. They're all talking to each other. The dispatcher's got to be able to try to talk, type, and hear all those conversations at the same time.
In the fire, what was your volume of calls? Just say in the first day, what was that looking like?
Yeah, so in the first 24-hour period of this Highland Lakes fire, we took almost 700 phone calls. Wow. 56 of those were 911 calls. So think about that. Just think in terms of sheer volume. Even if you just look at the 24-hour period, mm-hmm. that's a call every other minute. Okay. And remember what I was talking about. You're talking to law enforcement officers, you're talking to fire department personnel, you're talking to medical personnel, and at the same time, every other minute you have a new call coming in that you've got to address.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how many dispatchers did you have working during the fire?
During the fire, we happened to have, we had 4 people on duty.
Okay.
And we kept those resources on. The 2 of the dispatchers that were actually supposed to get off at 6 o'clock stayed over. So we had 2 dispatchers that ended up pulling 16-hour days that day. But they, being as dedicated as they are, they couldn't leave with that kind of event going on, so they both stayed. And then we finally, when we could let them go, we got a couple of other resources to come in. So we kept 4 dispatchers on duty until after midnight that night. Mm-hmm. Things tend to slow down between midnight and dawn on that kind of event.
Sure. Okay. Did you have anything to do with the helicopters?
Yes. Well, what happens is the fire chiefs, once a fire chief arrives, and particularly the one that's going to be in command of this particular incident, they will tell us when they need that resource.
Okay.
Now, in this case, it just happened there were some helicopters nearby, and state was listening and heard what was going on. Okay. And they had actually started those helicopters already toward us, so that worked out very well. Okay. And I think it was probably one of the factors in being able to contain the fire to only 100 acres or so.
Now, Sheriff, you were the fire marshal for the county, so you probably had all of this in your lap. How much did you work with dispatch to make sure that everything was taken care of?
Well, here's the thing about dispatch. We're all working with dispatch. The main single hub for all the information going back and forth with the state on resource needed, just how many calls are coming in, where the fire chiefs, that's all of our radio system.
Okay.
That whole radio system is actually a Teller County radio system that dispatch monitors and makes sure of. So they're already monitoring everything that is being done on every channel, even by all the fire guys. And when the fire operations is asking for something, even going car to car with the fire chief, that dispatcher is already starting to push forward on getting it. So it's very quick on how they handle these things. So quite honestly, that is the leading factor for success in these things, is your communication capability.
Okay.
Being able, a fire chief, to know which side of the fire that everything's working on and which side they need to pinch, how they need to fight that fire, we need to bring in helicopters, we need to do all that stuff. That is, dispatch is already prepping that so that they can go point to point with those people on the ground. So, dispatch has a huge amount of pressure on a fire.
Yeah.
Right? And also just, they had a lot of successes too. The speed at which they can contact people and get them in here. If you look at our dispatch center, a dispatcher sits in front of 7 different screens that are all, 29 inches probably, Roger?
They're the larger monitors, that's right.
Yeah. So, they're sitting in it's almost like a pilot seat with all of this stuff around them. And they're monitoring, moving, and doing things constantly. And then plus still dealing with all the other issues going on in the county.
Oh, yeah, that's
Not just the fire. You still have medicals, and you still have other things. So it's, they're amazing people. And they're amazing at the speed at which they can get things accomplished.
Well, I remember when I came into the fire operations center, I blinked, and the number of people that were here working it had increased exponentially. So I'm assuming that your people really had to do a lot of flexing to bring in and start tracking those people and start communicating and make sure that they had the lines of they could communicate with each other and to you.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, when aircraft are involved, whether it's those helicopters or the reconnaissance aircraft, either one, we're working with the Pueblo Interagency Dispatch Center, so there's also that kind of interaction.
Oh, okay.
With other dispatch center. Even if it doesn't involve any of the local ones, we have the state level that we're working with as well. So that's going on. But yeah, communication is it's critical. One of the things important in a fire like this is tracking those resources, because once all these people are on the ground, firefighters and law enforcement in particular, up near the fire, we need to be listening really carefully to make sure we know where they are so somebody doesn't get trapped in there. People are over the ridge or around behind the trees, and not everybody can see where everybody is, so that communication becomes even more critical in that situation. So it's the dispatcher's job to be listening to all of that and be able to filter out and listen for problems that somebody may not be aware of or that we need to bring somebody's attention, in addition to responding to with resources.
Now, a fire, something like a fire, large scale, lots of acreage potentially. Let's go to something that's a little more centralized, and let's talk about the accident at the Mollie Kathleen mine a bit. What did that day look like for you? How did that event start for the dispatch center?
Yeah, that one came in, you mean before the event?
Leading up to the event.
So the morning had been a pretty normal morning, I would say.
Sure, okay.
Nothing unusual going on. Then all of a sudden, here we are in the afternoon. We get a call, and the very first call is that there's an accident and that there, are some injured people, possibly seriously injured. Once again, the dispatcher immediately is going to start sending law enforcement resources, because they've got to get there and help us assess the situation. They're the ones that determine, all right, what are the potential risks here, what resources are going to be needed. Then the next step, we already knew there was a person involved, so we're sending fire and we're also sending medical. So you got 3 resources going again at the same time. Now understand too, this is a particularly traumatic event. These people that were in this elevator going down this mine shaft, and you have this kind of accident occur, particularly when there was some definite injuries involved already. You have some very excited callers. You can tell the trauma that they're experiencing. Sometimes it's hard for them to communicate. So one of the things the dispatcher has to develop is the ability to pull that information out. They got to do 2 things at once, really. They've got to calm the person down enough so that they slow down and then pull out the information we need.
Sure.
This person already has a certain mindset about what they think's going on and what they think they need, but we kind of need to help them understand a little bit more about exactly what do you see, so that we can help determine then which responders to send. This is another example where involvement with other agencies becomes critical too, because we not only had state agencies involved with that one, we even had a federal agency. So because it was something involved in the employment environment, we had to involve OSHA as well. So now you're coordinating local, state, and federal resources. Dispatcher has a lot of balls in there at any given time.
Yeah.
Now, there was a lot of information flying around about that, and a lot of it was inaccurate. A lot of it was people making assumptions. They hear mine accident. They start thinking things like cave-in, which obviously it wasn't. Did you get a lot of phone calls from external parties that weren't necessarily connected to the incident, but wanted to know about the cave-in, or that were trying to verify a lot of the false information that was out there?
Well, Tommy, even us as first responders, that was the first call I got.
Okay.
Was that it was trapped in the collapse of a mine.
Okay.
That was the initial call, because all the dispatchers are working off to give us information, because they're dispatching me too at the same time.
Okay.
They're working off of the information they can pull out of somebody that's very excited.
Okay.
Right, and we have no idea really what's going on until we get people up there. So those initial phone calls were much worse than what we really found when we got there. So, fortunately for us, that's the case. But, dispatch is constantly having to go back and get more information and put out more information as to what's really happening too. So it doesn't just begin and end with that one dispatch. It's a constant dispatching of capabilities and information gathering from, they're trying to paint this picture themselves of what's happening and then send it back to us painting a picture of what is going on. And it can be very difficult.
Well, I would think that with all the activity that's going on, all the coordination you're doing, all the communication that you're handling, if you're getting, say, somebody over in Colorado Springs calling you saying, hey, we heard this happen, that may kind of get in the way a little bit of you trying to do your job. I'm talking completely uninterested parties. If there are family members or something like that that want information, I get that. But if there's somebody that's uninterested, just they saw it on Facebook and they just want to, because they want to know, they want to know.
What we call looky-loos?
Yeah, looky-loos.
Yeah, we do get some of that, not as much as you would think, though. The one thing we do get is a lot of reporters, right?
Oh, sure.
They want to know, because their job is to paint the picture for the public. So their dispatch is also routing then people to different folks. Like they started routing right away people to Renee Bunting, and now you.
Yeah.
So it's that constant having to send people where they need to be and prioritize, different pieces. Because the other side of it is we do need the media, so we want to get them to the spot. We want to get them to the right information so that we can stop all that, what we call the looky-loos of trying to call in and get that information from us. So, that partnership with the media becomes pretty pressing very quickly because we've got to get the information out.
Oh, yeah, and they were pretty fantastic to work for in the mine, or work with.
Very much so.
Mine
Yeah.
incident.
Mm-hmm.
And you coordinating that, or you doing that routing of those calls is, I'm sure, vital to that. You have making sure that it's efficiently done, so that we don't have people from the media waiting in the wings, getting angry and feeling like they're being left out.
This was an interesting one from a media perspective too, because we were not only getting local and state and U.S. media resources, we were getting international calls. I remember one of the first international to come in was the BBC.
Oh, okay.
So we're getting calls from, in this case, almost all over the world, and they're looking for that information.
Okay.
But but the sheriff's right. Getting that information out to the public is what is what helps us to not get those extra calls. Because you're right, we get some of those, we get the media calls. Fortunately, we have you guys in the public information office that can help with those. But it's something, again, it's part of this juggling act that the dispatchers are doing while they have all these things going on at the same time.
Okay.
And they're
Why don't
nice.
we use-
They're nice the whole time. I mean,
Yeah,
it amazes
yeah.
me sometimes because I don't know how they stay so nice, because the amount of phone calls you get, and sometimes, I'll be honest, people tell you there's no dumb questions. I will tell you there are dumb questions, right? and the issue is trying to deal nicely with things that sometimes you just want to hang up the phone.
That's just professional. That's
It
the
is.
professionalism
So
that your people
professional.
have.
And they do it really well.
Yeah.
They're very good at that.
Well, okay, so
We don't want to just mention
Okay,
one
please.
other thing from a communication perspective that is important. We also use peak alerts.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the fire was an example where peak alerts was even more critical. We sent out 7 peak alerts notices within the first 5 hours of that event, because to the point both of you made, people around the event that are calling us are wanting to know, is this coming my way? Is this something I need
Yeah.
to be concerned about? So we're giving people information. We're also putting information out there with our pre-evacuation alerts, the areas that it might be going to and that we might have to evacuate, and we're sending information once we start evacuating and when it stops. So again, peak alerts is so important, and really encourage the public to sign up for that if they haven't, because that's another really valuable communication tool.
And I will put a link in the show's description where people can get to peak alerts and get that on their communication devices.
Yep.
All right, so I understand that this last one I want to talk about, all of this happening within 90 days. My gosh, what's going on in Taylor County here? The last thing I want to talk about here apparently started with a phone call from a county commissioner calling dispatch saying something along the lines of, hey, tornado just touched down outside of my house. I love you guys. I'll call you back when it's over. Something along those lines.
Yeah, Tommy, you never know when something's going to happen, and that's kind of the point of having a dispatch center. You don't know when something is going to happen in the county. And we have been through our trials here in the last 90 days with a tornado, then a mine incident. And here's the thing, then a late season fire on top of a snowstorm following right behind it, which we normally don't get this much snow this time of year. So all four of those events were unexpected events that in a normal world we wouldn't be receiving. A tornado at almost 11,000 feet or 10.5 is not a normal tornado. A fire this time of year is not a normal fire. In fact, we were one day from all of those capabilities going away because they were going to end them for the season as a state level and a federal level. So, and then having a snowstorm with that much snow, which was more like our spring snows, because we normally don't get our major snows until January, February-ish type, to hit that early. And then to have a mine issue that, we really don't have many mines here anymore, especially underground mines.
Yeah, it's all open pit
and it's
now.
really not a mine, it's a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
So to have all of those things hit, and when you go to sheriff's school, they talk about, well, Taylor County, you'll probably never have this type of an incident. And I'm like, when does that happen? This county's always been a busy county. It always has things happening. I don't think people realize how big this county really is, and that how many people really are here, and the types of events we deal with, because we are high elevation. We do have the gambling, we do have mining, we do have all these things that really, if I got to be a sitting sheriff in any of these other counties, I may not experience any of these issues my whole career. And our dispatchers, they really are formed in fire here. They jumped out in 90 days and hit every single one of those that they would, most likely not see in different agencies, or maybe one type of event. You go to a lower elevation area, you're probably going to have a tornado, but you're not going to have major snowstorms like this, but maybe once every so many years. A fire, you got to be in a high mountain environment like this, where just the conditions are just right. There is a lot of things. In this county, it's not one that you sit back and just wait for things to happen, right? So, and that's what makes us successful, is we lean so far forward all the time on making sure we're so far ahead of any type of an event. And then we sit down, we go over those events afterwards to go, hey, could we have done this better? What do we need to make this better? And really, this dispatch center was really the kind of that child that came out of those minds and people thinking about, what do we need to do better for this county and for our taxpayers and constituents? And really, it's proving itself worth.
Well, we keep talking about the ability of the dispatch center to flex and then to work with multiple agencies. And for crying out loud, like you said, a tornado out here at 10.5. So you've got a commissioner that's called in that's left this crazy kind of cryptic message. You've got a tornado, for crying out loud, that you got to deal with, and then you've also got to deal with the multiple levels of agencies that you were talking about, from the local level all the way up to, I think, didn't we have some federal folks out here? Yeah, and so there you are dealing with that again. So that is another illustration of the flexibility and the capability of the dispatch center to handle these different varieties of calls at all these different levels. So that is again very confidence instilling in the ability of you, and by extension you, to get out there and get our people safe and taken care of. So that's outstanding.
With one of the things too, Tommy, is it all comes down to personnel. right? And one thing Roger's done is, we had a few years ago, because we as a county paid so poorly for dispatchers and really didn't understand their worth, we were down to 3 dispatchers at one point. I remember going to the commissioners going, you have to do something. We can no longer sustain this type of way of doing business. We have got to do what I call stop the bleed. We cannot lose dispatchers because we don't pay them anything. And the 3 commissioners I have now, they looked at it and went, you're right. And they did an emergency order, and they boosted their salaries to where now that dispatchers are some of the better ones paid in the whole Front Range. And it has shown we have quality people now. And I just want to give a little shout out to the commissioners for making that decision, because prior to that, as an agency and as a dispatch, we were the worst paid agency in Colorado. And that had been allowed by previous commissioners. So, being able to bring that in and actually stay, somewhat close to the market has helped us immensely. And that's why you're seeing better personnel and really keeping better personnel. Because it takes us 11 months to train a dispatcher by the time it's all said and done.
6 months formal, and then another 5 to really get them up to speed where they can work their console themselves. And
it takes us 2 months to hire one, because they got to go through all this massive testing, and then to pay them less than minimum wage. You're not going to keep them. These are career folks. They're not retired on duty. They're not those folks that just come in for a job and it's super easy. This is a hard, full of a lot of pressure, and it's a career-oriented position. Our dispatchers, they get paid very well for starting rate. What is it, Roger, for our starting?
$57,887 is the annualized rate, so $57,887.
So $57,000 for starting wage, with an 8% match on retirement, and then they get their health insurance is about $65 a month for a full family coverage. They do very well on that aspect, and they are amazing people. And I think that being able to modernize a dispatch center, bring in competent personnel, and really do a lot of training to keep their level up, that's huge. It's huge. Well, and then bringing in the right manager to manage it makes a big difference.
Well, and my understanding is, talking about the good pay and the benefits that dispatchers get, also probably a huge amount of job satisfaction based on that everything you do, you're helping somebody. But there are opportunities right now for folks to come in if they want to become dispatchers as well, right?
We do. We're interviewing right now for dispatchers. And that's something that we even when we have all of our positions full, we like to still have people apply for the position. As the sheriff mentioned, it takes 2 months to hire a dispatcher.
Sure.
So we need to be constantly looking ahead. 2 months to hire them, 6 months to get them through the formalized training, another 5 really before you get them functional. We have to be looking out ahead all the time.
And the thing is too, Tommy, is because our people are so qualified, we're going to lose them to bigger agencies. The one thing is we have one girl that she's done an amazing job here. She's received multiple life-saving awards. She's been on top of it. She's leaving to go to Alaska as a law enforcement officer.
Oh.
One of the things that pushed her over the edge was her dispatch capability.
Okay.
So, that's the thing is it's a career stepping stone sometimes to much better things, and you can't hold somebody back for that. That's what they're doing, and that's a great thing. Yeah. But that's why we're always looking for great team members.
Well, then I will make sure. I was talking about putting something else in the show notes. I'll put the link to the application process into the show notes as well. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about all of these different events that we've had, and to talk about how dispatch plays a critical role in all of it. Heck, even maybe a lead role in all of it. So, Roger, Sheriff, thank you so much for joining me today. And everybody at home, thank you for joining us as well. I'm sorry, Sheriff, you sound like you're going to say something.
I just want to say thank you for allowing us to serve you. I think that's the key, is that we serve the community. And without their support, we wouldn't have any of these things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Have a great day.